Before we wrap up for today, thank you for having us here to visit you and Casper before Dublin. I just have a little something to give you just for one last piece of luck for Dublin.
Thank you. Oh my goodness.
And there's only one last thing for us to say, and that's cheers to Dublin 2026.
Cheers to Dublin.
We've come up today to visit Nicci Hall, who has qualified her very special horse, Ladykiller, Casper to his friends, for Dublin for the second time. So today is really all about Casper, and every other day, let's be honest. But before we get into Casper's very special story, you also have a very special day job that you do when you're not in the saddle.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I'm an educational psychologist and I work with lots of young people with a range of special needs. A few years ago, I really wanted to figure out how I could integrate my two passions in psychology and ponies, and happened to come across a whole new world of equine assisted learning and equine assisted therapy. So I did some training at Festina Lenta in Dublin over the course of a year, and that has led into lots of different experiences in terms of delivering equine assisted learning one-to-one with loads of individual children at home, working in schools, doing visits in hospitals, lots of different ways that ponies can reach out and work with young people and help them learn new skills, learn things about themselves, and really learn to cope better with some of the challenges in the world.
So Donut that we met today has a very special job today.
Yes, Donut works today with a little boy called Jack. Jack has been coming to see the ponies for quite a few years now. And what the ponies really do for Jack, he finds communication difficult. There are certain environments that are quite overwhelming for him. Change is very difficult for him. And really when Jack spends time with the ponies and lots of the children that I work with, there's like a natural connection and a bond that is different to whenever they work with people. So it allows him to have a sense of autonomy, so he can do things like lead the pony and feed the pony, and connect without words, which I think is really important for him because that verbal communication is very difficult.
That connection that you talked about between the children and the ponies, that can also carry through into our own adult lives, because I'm not sure if everybody knows the backstory, but you actually bought Casper off me as a 7-year-old. So his whole story is known right from the very start. So just briefly, my mum bought him as a 3-year-old unbroken. My friend Killian Dunn rang me up one day and he said, I have this little steel grey, small little horse. I think he'll suit you down to the ground. We went and we looked at him. Both myself and mum fell in love with him, and we produced him then up to 120, which is where your story starts with Casper. So the thing that really kind of struck me is that we had a lot of people come and try him. He was really bouncy, he was fun, but we had people that he just didn't get. And he's a very sensitive horse, you know that. He either takes to someone or he doesn't. And the minute you came down and sat on him, I said to mum, if she wants him, she can have him. And that was, so you bought him in 2017.
That's August 2017.
And the very next year you qualified for Dublin.
Yeah.
And got to the main arena.
Absolutely.
And finished
fifth
in the main arena. Okay, so that was a major buzz. That was
huge.
A big step, a huge achievement.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional now talking about it. So tell us then what happened then. What Casper's story kind of took a little turn there. So tell us what happened.
We had quite a run of success and very quickly went from A up to AA within a year. He won Balmoral the following year, and just loved the job, loved to get out, do things, see the crowd, loved to win. So we were coming through the winter. We had come out in March 23 and had jumped the Balmoral qualifier. He was absolutely on fire. We were like, brilliant, this is going to be such a good year. And we were starting to kind of prepare for Dublin qualifiers. And I thought, okay, we'll go and have a little school round the meadows on a Sunday just to get ready, last 1:10, and on the way home I was leaving and he suddenly let a big kick out of him, and I was like, oh goodness, that's very unusual. Drove on, didn't really think any more about it, and seemed to be totally fine through the next few days. And then we went into the stable on a Wednesday morning and he didn't want his breakfast, was really down, really lethargic, which is absolutely not him. And of course my heart absolutely sank because he had been such a happy, well little horse. So straight over to the vets, and we had maybe, I think, 2.5 months of not really knowing what was wrong. We kept having episodes of colic, but not really finding an answer and coming through them. And we did lots of different gastroscopes and explored this and explored that, and never really coming up with any answers. And people were like, I think he's okay, he's fine. And I had this real gut feeling that he just wasn't fine, because I know his normal bubbly self. And eventually we got to the point where we needed to go to UCD because we just couldn't find answers, and it kept happening. He spent another 11 days in UCD and still no answers. So in the absence of really having a reason, they thought it must have been a virus. So we went home. We thought, okay, let's see how we're going. And within 10 days again, he started to colic. And so we went back to Sufferings, and at this point when he was examined, we found a huge melanoma inside his bowel. And at the time we were nearly a little bit relieved, because we were like, okay, we've found it, we can do something about this. Got back down to UCD with the idea that we would be able to operate on it. But unfortunately they biopsied it, confirmed it was a melanoma. Unfortunately there was a blood vessel running through it, so it was a very difficult decision that we were faced with at that point. They were saying we could operate to debulk it a little bit. It's quite a significant operation, or we can just see how it progresses on its own. The worry was, of course, that it had come from, nobody had been able to sort of feel or find or scan this melanoma to being in around sort of 10 centimetres by like 5 by 6, because I still have all the measurements in my phone. And so then he was getting to the point where this was going to cause problems in terms of him being able to pass bowel movements. So we took him home and had a good think about it, and decided that we couldn't put him through that operation on the basis that actually it might only be a matter of weeks before that would grow back again. So we felt we had no option. They'd sort of said keep his diet really soft, keep everything, keep him on the grass, really liquidy foods, and you'll know when the time has come. And honestly, that was the worst summer of my whole life, and now I feel emotional, because it's just, he's such a bubbly little character, and to think that he wasn't going to be there to do the things that he loves. And so I thought, this can't be it.
So essentially the outcome of that was that they sent him home to spend his last days at home with you, and this was the end of the road.
Yeah.
But you weren't going to take that, were you?
No, definitely not. I had decided at that point that there had to be an answer, and this just, I couldn't accept that that would be without making some kind of a fight or putting up some sort of a resistance to it. So I started to Google, as you do, which everybody says you shouldn't do, but I'm kind of glad I did. So I think I tortured all the vets in UCD. I tortured my own vet, Inga, at Tullyreen. So I would phone up and say, okay, I've read this on Google, what about chemotherapy? And they would say, no, that's not possible for this. So after looking at lots of different things, I happened to come across an article about the Oncept vaccine, which is a vaccine for dogs. And I read some veterinary journals and things, of which I maybe understood about 20%, but the 20% I understood said that there was a chance that this could reduce melanoma tumours. So I had phoned UCD. Unfortunately, it's not licensed to use in the south. So then I was on the phone to my vet in the north, and we were a bit worried at this point, would we even be able to access it? And Inga was absolutely amazing. She said, okay, leave it with me, let me have a think. Phoned me back a few days later and said it's ordered. And suddenly we were like, okay, we've maybe got a little bit of hope here. So it was administered an initial dose every 2 weeks for 4 doses, and we didn't do any measurements or scans until the 3rd dose. And by the 3rd dose, the tumour had shrunk from like 10 centimetres to about sort of 5-6. So there were huge positive signs, and from then on, it was Inga kept saying, okay, like we're looking good. I think maybe you could maybe take him for a walk down the lane. And I will never forget that day, because I cried absolute buckets in the middle of the vets, because I thought that would never happen. I thought he wasn't going to be with us, never mind ever be able to sit on him again. And the whole way along, Inga has just been like, okay, what about try a little bit of flat work in the arena? And to this day, even this year, she's the one that said, what about trying the Dublin qualifier? Because I'm always a little bit cautious and, oh, would this be okay? And she's in the background all the time saying, I think everything's fine, let's go, let's give it a try. He loves it. So she's been amazing.
Okay, you got your hands on these vaccines and they were being successful, everything was working, everything was back on track, you were back in the saddle, happy days.
Yep.
But that didn't last too long, did it?
No, because we had been able to buy an initial batch of 4, and then the company decided that pressures for other drugs, and they decided they weren't going to make the onset vaccine. At the time, we thought that was forever for horses. So we were absolutely panicking about what happens next, where do we go from here? And things were okay for a little while, and there was we were coming into the winter and doing a little bit of work, and I suddenly got this just gut feeling again that something was a little bit different. And I'd walked into the stable one day and he was holding his tail out a little bit, and again that feeling of dread comes, and just this pit of my stomach disappeared. And straight over to our local vets again, and he had another melanoma this time, but thankfully in a place that it was operable. So we had another trip to UCD. I think they probably know him as well as I do at this stage, and they were able to operate on that. Since then, we've kind of been in and out of UCD and had a few different procedures to keep on top of everything. But we came out this year and he was in fabulous form. We had another little blip at the start of this year. Casper had been in UCD to have a procedure to have some melanomas removed, and in the process of that and the examination, they had found what we think is a melanoma in his eye. And I had a panic again, as I've done on and off for years, and felt like, okay, this is going to be a big issue. That's it, the year's over. Took him down for another check-up then a few weeks later, and to see if there was a change or it had grown, expecting bad news, and they said no, it's absolutely fine, there are no changes. So I was a little bit shocked, and I thought, oh, actually we should go and maybe do some jumping, and I thought, well, we'll do some classes and see how we go. The Dublin qualifiers are there, I wonder if it's possible. And that was the point where I was straight on to you saying, do you think this is in any way achievable?
And my advice to you was, you know him better than anybody else at this point. And if you think he can do it, I believe that you two can do it. And you entered, and off we all went to Colostry, because there was no way you were going to Colostry without me in tow.
Yeah.
So what happened at Colostry?
We arrived down with not huge expectations, just wanting to have an amazing day out, have a bit of fun, let him enjoy that bit of buzz. And we warmed up, we went in and jumped the first round, and I was like, wow, he felt unbelievable. And we came out like kind of buzzing together, and as if the two of us were like just in the moment enjoying it. And I remember getting the message saying you were on the way over, and I thought, okay, what if I mess this up now? And everybody's there to see it. But it was so lovely, because it was like all of his support team were there, and you would swear that he knew and felt the buzz, and he went into the second round a hand taller even than the first round, jumped an amazing round again, and suddenly we were like, oh my goodness, we're in a jump off here. And I think at that point we thought, oh, everybody's so fast, and we're not match fit, and we weren't expecting this. And as I was warming up, I could hear 4 faults, 4 faults, 4 faults, and I thought, oh, okay, it's a possibility. And the game plan was go in, try and jump a clear round, do a few turns, but nothing too dramatic, no galloping headlessly. And again, he jumped another clear round, and I will never forget the feeling of coming over the finish line and giving him this huge big pat, and he just galloped off as fast as he could go, as in like, yeah! And everybody, you know, galloping down past you and Olive and everybody that was there to support him, and that is a moment that will stick with me for years. And I remember coming out and everybody standing outside, floods of tears, happy tears. So yeah, that was one of the most amazing days ever.
There was 144 starters, only 23 went into the third round, and Casper was...
We finished fourth.
Yeah, and I was bawling my eyes out on the sideline. You were bawling your eyes out.
Everybody.
And it was all roads lead to Dublin.
Yeah.
And then we hit one more little blip.
Yeah, we have had another little bump on the road, as I think Casper now likes to do, just to keep me on my toes. He suddenly dropped quite a lot of weight, dropped a lot of top line, and again was very kind of lethargic, and your heart straight away goes to that not very nice place, thinking that the worst could be coming again. And we tried lots of different things, couldn't really find any answers. He spent a little bit more time in UCD. They said, okay, I think we're maybe turning a corner, let's see how we go, and gave us the green light to try and get going for Dublin. So we're fighting against sort of time restrictions, but we're just over a week away, and we're going, and we're going to give it everything that we've got, because I owe it to Casper, because he has given me so much over the years, and nothing would be as nice for him as to be in the middle of that arena again with the crowd, the buzz, the noise. So if that is our swan song this year, then we will do everything we can to make it amazing.